Hello all, it's John again, the old geek, and it's time for another AD&D module review. Now for this one I have moved my microphone as far away from the computer as possible because people did comment that there was a humming on some of the previous videos, so let me know if that's sorted. When I say that this will be the first in a 4-part series of reviews, then I'm sure many of you will know what's coming. It's time for A1 Slave Pits of the Undercity. The entire Slavers series of modules were originally written back in 1980 and used for Gen Con that year, with different parts of the series being used for the various rounds of the competition. Thus, once again, these modules began life in the tournaments. A1 was published by TSR later in 1980 and was reissued in the Scourge of the Slave Lord supermodule 6 years later, and then re-released in 2013 in Against the Slave Lords. As always, presentation to begin with, and it is typical of its time. It's a 24-page main booklet with an outer card sleeve containing the maps. Interior art is generally limited to fairly small pieces, and though they are pleasant enough, they're nothing special. Much of the artwork is by Jeff D, including the 2 cover pieces, and while his style is very much all action, his skin-tight suited superhero style never really appealed to me. I do quite like the cover though, showing the party fighting 2 Aspies, don't know what the plural is, a new monster introduced to this module, and look, a female dwarf warrior with a beard, just as Tolkien envisaged. Pay attention, Amazon. The font used in the adventure is quite dense, but as the text is not overly wordy, it doesn't create a problem. Maps are adequate, if a little cramped. With just 14 of the module's 24 pages being devoted to adventure, the initial overall impression is that the adventure is a little light on content. A1 begins the lengthy Slavers campaign and pits the PCs against a number of slave lords who have been raiding coastal settlements, looting and burning them, and shipping innocent people off to be sold in slave markets. This first episode is set in the city of Highport, the focal point of the Pomage Peninsula in central Greyhawk, dominated by humanoids. The module gives a short background, followed by some tournament notes and a description of the main adventuring location, a crumbling temple compound. The party need to gain entry to this compound and try to find information on who is overseeing the raids. Most of the usual tournament module issues are present. Roughly 20% of the total page count is given over to tournament PCs, their equipment, and DM notes on running a tournament game and scoring it. I would have preferred to see this reduced and in its place have information on Highport itself and introducing the module to a campaign. When I ran it a couple of years ago, we had 2 good gaming sessions devoted to travelling to Highport and the party learning about the place. I pulled some of this from the later releases, but improvised most of the details myself, emphasising just how vile and corrupt such a place should be. I won't go into any real specific details though, this is a family channel, sort of. While the suggested character level range of 4 through 7 might work quite nicely to ensure tournament games produce clear results, I would not suggest level 4 PCs attempt this adventure in a campaign, unless they are seriously well kitted out. My group were mostly level 5 and they had issues getting into the compound and staying there. When they reached the lower levels they got badly beaten up by the Aspies and were very fortunate to run away down a passageway which bypasses a significant number of the encounters. With the exception of the Aspies and the denizens of the upper level courtyard, it's not the nature of the enemies that makes the adventure tough. Rather, it's the environments in which the encounters tend to take place. Cramped passageways, narrow ledges, rooms with plenty of cover, and these factors give the combat a genuine level of excitement and peril, Ghouls are much more frightening if the party are jammed into a tight hallway, their progress partially blocked by a room full of detritus. Quite often, when tournament modules create difficult combat situations, little thought is given to the overall logic of the dungeon, but pleasingly, A1 manages to avoid this. Most locations and their encounters do fit and make some degree of sense. Some critics of the adventure have highlighted what they perceive to be map errors, and yes, changes were made to the maps for later reissues. I'm not sure those changes were 100% necessary though. I've seen comments made about areas 9 and 10 of the upper level being inaccessible. But are they? The section is a courtyard. By their very nature, courtyards are open to the elements. Thus logic dictates those areas can be reached by scaling the outer walls, with those walls slowing the attempted escape of the panicked party when they discover what lurks there. I am going to pick it up on the nature of the lower level though, and this is my pedantry coming through here, I'm afraid. The lower level mainly consists of a sewer, and the insistence of fantasy authors to incorporate sewers in D&D adventures frustrates me. Yes, sewage systems were invented thousands of years ago, but not ones that people could walk in. AD&D largely draws its feel from medieval Europe, and it wasn't until the mid-19th century that European cities had extensive underground sewage systems of a suitable size. It is a minor point, this is just me being a grumpy pedant. The adventure culminates in the slave pits themselves, where the party will encounter the first of the slave lords. Unlike later modules in the series, this one is unnamed. There is the potential here for some highly dynamic and perilous combat in this section. A moat of sewage, a ledge running around the outside lined with orc crossbowmen, giant weasels rushing through the sewage towards the party, and a leader with the ability to become invisible. This is potentially a really challenging fight. Very memorable, great fun. If the party prevail, they will discover information regarding the extent of the slavers' operation, and a map leading them to the second module in the series. This can easily be omitted if the DM does not wish to run the rest of the series, as the final encounter is such that it would serve as a memorable finale to this adventure. Unlike many other tournament adventures, A1 does a good job of portraying the location and avoids being too linear. There are multiple routes through the adventure and a strong emphasis on testing the resourcefulness of the players. I mentioned early on in the review that the adventure initially feels light, but that feeling soon goes away when the dungeoneering starts, as there's plenty in here to keep the group entertained. This is not a dungeon that the party are likely to charge through at pace. For any DMs wishing to incorporate this adventure in a campaign, I highly recommend they take the time, as I did, to give life to Highport. Make it violent, filthy and seedy. Put temples to the worst deities in your realm in there. Highlight the mistreatment of the victims of the slavers, and make the players really hate their foes. This being a fairly short module, it is quite a short review, so I'm going to go straight to the rating now, and I give Slave Pits of the Undercity 7.5 out of 10. It would have scored more highly if it had included more on Highport itself, as I feel that was a missed opportunity to add real meat to the setting and assist DMs looking to use this in their campaigns. The module does offer an engaging and challenging dungeon crawl, rewards clever play, and begins the A series in a satisfying manner. Well, that's been me, the old geek, once again. Hope you enjoy the review, hope you enjoy the video. Click a like and a subscribe, and my next review will of course be A2, The Secret of the Slavers' Stockade. Good night.